This is an enormous issue. Truckers spend way too much time trying to find a place to park. So this cuts into earnings for both the driver and the business owner. Welcome to This Week in Trucking, the podcast that tells you what you need to know about the trucking market for the week in 30 minutes or less. This week, we are talking about diesel prices, freight market updates, the truck parking club controversy, and what you might be able to expect to make as a single truck owner-operator in this market. Plus, we'll be answering your questions about the trucking industry. Hey, Gurveer, how's it going?
Doing pretty good. How about you? How's your week going?
I'm good. A little chaotic. I moved this week. I'm going to have to move again in August, but all things considered, it went pretty well.
That's good. That's good. We're in June officially. This is the 6th month of the year. Is it flying by the year for you, or how are you feeling?
Completely. Where
Yeah.
did it go?
Yeah, it was like literally yesterday was January and today we're in June. I guess it's good when you don't remember it when it's a recessionary period. I guess, you know that you're getting closer and closer to this equilibrium that everybody's saying that we're approaching, or at least I'm saying that we're getting there slowly. Let's see, when does it pop up and come up? So I guess it's easier when you don't remember time.
Yeah. Yeah. They say that time flies when you're having fun. I don't know if that really tracks with this year's market.
Yeah. I think there's some truth to that. So what do we have for this week? Do we have some good news?
We do. We have some good news in the diesel market again this week, and we are down. This week's national average diesel price is down by about 6 cents as of Monday of this week. We're down a couple of cents this time last year, so tracking with about the same price where we were last year, but with some significant changes from the previous weeks. So last week we were at 357.7. Today, or this week, we're at 351.6. That's a 6 cent drop. 2 weeks ago, we were at 358.4. And diesel prices are down in most regions compared to last week, with the exception of the Rocky Mountain states. And the biggest drop was in the Midwest, down by 11 cents, and the West Coast, actually, down by 8 cents. So this is all always good news. I think there's always a pretty predictable drop in fuel prices as we get closer to the summertime and the world starts heating up, or at least the northern hemisphere is heating up. So across the US, we're going into the summertime and not needing heating fuels. So that's a big part of it. But also geopolitically, things have not panned out the way that some experts thought they would, thought that there were going to be some big spikes in prices. And fortunately, that didn't happen.
Yeah, the future market for diesel went down. That's leading to it. So that just shows that, hey, people are willing to pay much less for oil in the future. So that's a really good indicator. And this is good news. I think we were trying to get to the 350s number. We're getting closer and closer. So this is really good news. Again, this adds all to the bottom line, right? I think last year at one point, the oil prices and diesel got really expensive. And it just hurts the pockets of owner operators and truckers and everyone. So at least something good is happening here.
Yeah, definitely. So what can you tell us about the freight market this week? Do we have more good news coming down?
Somewhat. I thought that we would continue this blitz that we had from end of May just because of Memorial Day. And we also had I think, inspection week. And because of that, a lot of people sat on the sidelines and rates went up. Rates have come down since then, but just not as much. So yeah, we're still seeing a little bit of an improvement, but not as much. So dry van, by the way, DAT trend lines, if you ever look at these, they throw you off in the beginning of the month. So yesterday, like on the first, I think when I looked at it, I was like, wow, it said the dry van per mile rate was 218. I was like, look, that's really amazing. We went from 202 to 218. But as the week went by and as more data came in, we settled to 203. So I got really excited in the beginning of the month, but they obviously do this every start of the month, right? So really ignore the trend lines in the first week of the month. They're usually off. But what is happening today? So more of the rates have settled down. The data has settled down. So dry van, we're at 203. So there's a 1 cent increase from May. Again, not huge, but there's some increase in dry van rates. Flatbed continues to be a leader compared to dry van and reefer. So we're up 1 cent again in flatbed as well. We're at from 253 to 254, and reefer went down by 1 cent. In April, we were at 233, and in May we went 9 cents up to 242. In June, it's about down 241. Again, we're in the first week of June, so these will continue to change. But we're seeing that, hey, it's just holding up to May, essentially. I don't think 1 cent increase is a huge thing. Rates are just holding towards what we saw in May. Overall, I think if we have to do a recap of May, what has happened is that there's still, if you look at capacity in the industry, there's still about 90,000 more carriers right now
Right.
through 2020, right? Demand remains steady. Like DAT spot load postings are up about 7% year over year, right? So that's a good thing. But we still have more carriers than we need, right? I don't think we've reached this equilibrium, and that's why rates are not increasing as bad as we would hope. I think because of the diesel going down, you're going to see more and more carriers just hold on and not go out. That's the bad thing about diesel prices coming down drastically, because your costs have come down. And that means people that were probably going to go out this summer and couldn't hold on and just ran out of all their money and savings. People that would have sold their truck and got out of the industry now probably could get a lifeline from the diesel prices coming down drastically, right? So we're still not seeing capacity leave as fast. Hence, we're not there into the equilibrium. Rates hit like new cycle lows in March and April, but rebounded around the DOT week, and we kicked off the 100 days of summer, and I think we'll stay around this. And two other points that I want to discuss as I cover the freight market. One is the rejection rate has come up, but now we're hovering around that 4.3, 4.4 number. We would really like to see this to get to 7. That's when we'll know that we're at the equilibrium. So there's still some work left there. And lastly, manufacturing index that we look at. I think that's one of the biggest indicators whether trucking is going to get a boost or not. It contracted again in May, right? So March expanded. April, it contracted, and May it contracted as well. So the manufacturing, I think, index came at 48 point something. Don't hold me to it, but yeah, we saw a small contraction in manufacturing index.
And we have a guide on our blog about the cycles in the trucking market and the different economic indicators that impact the trucking market. So we'll link that in the description. One of those is you talked about the manufacturing sector, or an indicator around that. Where can people find more information about that? Can you just explain what that means? And
yeah, there's this for supply chain, ismworld.org, and you can just every month they publish a report on what is the manufacturing PMI. And essentially any number below 50 is contraction, any number above 50 is expansion. So for May, we came at 48.7, right? That means there's a contraction happening. I think in March, we reached 50.2 or something. So there was a small expansion. So April and May both contracted. But yeah, you can go to ismworld.org and you can just look at, it's published every month at the end of the month. And essentially it's a survey of like top 200 manufacturers and seeing, hey, essentially it's a survey about what are they seeing in terms of manufacturing activity.
And what are they planning to do?
Exactly.
Are they going to be producing more or less? Do you think there are any other industry indicators that can point to some trends in trucking? I'm thinking construction. I can imagine where if you get a big push in construction and construction of infrastructure, particularly because that's what's in my mind right now, a big bill passed last year to improve infrastructure in the US. So there's going to be a lot of construction over the next couple of years. Is that something that can also boost the rates?
Yeah, I think housing market, manufacturing has a huge impact on trucking, housing specifically, especially on flatbed. So flatbed has been doing really well. Maybe there's some correlation there. I think I want to look into that more of what is leading to flatbed doing much better than reefer and drive-in.
Right.
Flatbed, usually construction, housing, and I think that could have something to do with the infrastructure bill. But yeah, I think manufacturing and housing is a big influence, has a big influence on trucking.
Yeah. The number one issue for truckers in this industry, according to the ATRI, is the economy and the rates.
Yeah.
Can you guess what the number 2 issue is?
Is it truck parking?
It's truck parking.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to talk about today too. Yeah. So we've talked about the most important issue. Let's talk about the second most important issue.
I feel good.
Generally.
Being in trucking for 10, 15 years, I feel good that I got that question right.
Yeah, you did. You did.
It would not look good if I had it wrong.
I don't know if you've heard of the truck parking club controversy. There's been a little bit of news going around about how some truck drivers are not super happy with this company right now. So, Truck Parking Club is a startup. It's Airbnb for truck parking, and it helps landowners monetize their vacant lots. That's the idea of it. It's supposed to convert parking lots that are unused to add truck parking to the supply of truck parking because this is an enormous issue.
Yeah.
Truckers spend way too much time trying to find a place to park instead of actually being able to use all of their hours to actually drive, right?
Yeah.
So this cuts into earnings for both the driver and the business owner, right? So
Yeah.
this is a huge issue. Truck Parking Club has done a pretty incredible job of adding new spots this year. They've added over 1,700 spots, and that is actually even more than the federal infrastructure bill plans to create this year all over the country. They're
Yeah.
also outpacing truck stops in developing new parking spots.
Yeah.
So they're doing they have this enormous job to create new truck parking spots. So they're doing an incredible job on that end. But one of the unintended consequences of this new app is that some businesses are now using it to monetize spaces that used to be either free or you used to be able to pay for them with rewards points. In this article that came out this week from Overdrive, there was one particular driver who came out and was expressing her frustration with this app being used unintentionally, probably on the part of Truck Parking Club, right? They don't necessarily want people to use their app to cause this consequence, but it is being used in that way. And so they were saying this driver who was interviewed in this article made a really good point. She was saying, I don't get paid for parking as a company driver. I don't get paid back for parking unless I talk about it prior to the load with my dispatcher. So if I don't know that I'm going to need truck parking, I don't necessarily get that paid back to me. I use points, which is usually from a big truck stop brand, because I get points by fueling at those truck stops. And then that's basically, those points are like paying me to fuel, right? For those 15, 30 minutes that I spend fueling.
Yeah.
Right? Because then I don't get paid for those because I'm not driving.
Yeah.
And then I get to use those points to pay for my parking. In this case, sometimes she'll get to those spots, and now they're going to be used to reserve on Truck Parking Club. She
For
can't use her
pilot
points to pay for them.
even for pilot flying, do they have to pay even though they fuel and they get the points and stuff? Like, so pilot flying is requiring truckers to pay for parking through
that app. Yeah. So some of them are being converted to spots that you have to reserve on Truck Parking Club. So there was some frustration expressed on social media about this by Michelle Kitchen, she's a driver and a board member of Real Women in Trucking. She's been driving since the 80s, and she made this complaint publicly on X. And the CEO of Truck Parking Club responded, and they actually seems like they had some kind of exchange about it. He actually proposed that they do a live stream together and talk about it and talk through it, which I thought was a cool invitation. We'll see if it actually happens. But I'm wondering what you think about this, Gravir, because you ran a trucking company for a while. Did your drivers pay for parking? How do you see it? Do you see that as a benefit to the industry, or is this just another middleman coming through and monetizing off of brokering these truck parking spots? What do you think?
It's been a while since I ran it, and we didn't have a huge problem back then. But I see there's a rest stop here on 95, and whenever I'm going on 95, I see truck parks, especially in the evening, like on the highway. Even the rest areas are completely full. And I think one time I counted, like there was 70 trucks parked outside of the rest area on the highway, and I think it's much more of a bigger problem now. We used to use TA Petrol. I think TA currently still gives you free parking if you fuel like 60 gallons. I think they give you free parking for 12 hours, I think. You can also get a free shower. So these amenities used to be free if you fueled up with some of these truck stops. Hence, I think what she's talking about that, hey, if you fuel at Pilot Flying Day, you would get free parking, right? And that was a Pilot Flying Day's way of getting their diesel and then giving them free parking. Park is also solving an interesting problem, and which is that there was a parking shortage. Parking is a huge problem. So they took all these vacant lots and parking availability that was available in all these areas and just created this network. I think it's an awesome and a great idea. Now, the con is that, hey, some of these parking prices are ridiculous, right? They're almost $30 a night. If
Wow.
park for 30 days, that's almost $900 that you would have to shell out. And even monthly parking rates are like $300 to $400 a month. And that's quite expensive to just park for a truck. A lot of people still park for free out on the roads and stuff. And there's a security issue. But it's an interesting problem. I don't think truck parking is here to blame, but it's pilot flying J. I think if they're taking those rewards and those point system away, and I think it's more so on pilot flying J that they
I
want.
agree.
You know?
And I think what I read in that article is that Truck Parking Club is trying to add that option to their app. So if it is a pilot spot that you want to reserve, that you should be able to pay for that with points
Yeah,
if you have them, right? So that's cool because there's a technological solution for that, right? But I think some people are just saying, hey, this should be a public good. I shouldn't have to pay for parking. I'm providing a necessary, essential service to the
yeah,
economy, and this is something that the government should be providing and supporting. So
yeah.
I wonder what your take is
Yeah,
on
and
that.
that's why it's getting number is just really slow. I think it took them a while to understand this was an issue and then pass this bill. I think there is a bill that they're trying to get more and more parking spots. They should build more rest areas which have free parking. And I think at the end of the day, the truckers and truck drivers need a safe space to park at and have a good night's sleep. If they're struggling to find parking for hours and hours, sometimes it takes drivers like an hour to find parking. Time that takes away from efficiency that they could have and just like having a good night's sleep, right? At the end of the day, drivers are always on the road. That's some public good that needs to be provided to them. So I think the state and the federal government should be more right around this, right? Like getting more parking spots and rest areas built. If you're privatizing it, obviously there's going to be cost to it. And I think that's what's happening here. If somebody has a lot here for 2 acres, 3 acres, and you have a platform like truckparking.com, they're going to be monetizing this thing because everybody has a cost, right? Acquiring these yards are not cheap either. In Baltimore,
Yeah,
Maryland, it's about $1 million per acre if you want to buy like a commercial yard.
totally.
You can only put there, yeah.
I think paid parking is better than no parking, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the option,
Yeah. Yeah. I
right,
think availability.
we should have more of all of it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is good too. Maybe there's going to be oversupply at some point and they'll bring the price down. But I think there's going to be a tightness in the parking spot. I don't think there's that many spots available. So I think you'll probably see
Right.
it in prices in this area. But the state should be doing more. Each state should be doing more, and then the federal government should be doing more about parking.
Yeah, agreed. All right, I know that you have some numbers that we talked about last week.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about how your dad was going out to and fueling in Missouri. I think he was on his way. Where
Yeah.
was he going?
He went to Kansas. Yeah.
Kansas.
Yeah, I went to Kansas, and he came back on this week on the 3rd. So yeah, I wanted to share numbers. So it's always, I think we talked about this on the podcast. People don't want to share their actual numbers of how much are they making, what does a week look like. So we just wanted to bring actual numbers and actual P&L of a truck driver with actual rates. We're not going to be showing rate confirmations, but just trust us. These are actual rates. We're not inflating these rates. We're not deflating these rates in any way. These are actual rates that my dad hauled. And let's just bring his numbers and break down his numbers so that everybody can learn like what's going on. I'm going to keep it very simple. So there's 2 things to keep in mind. One is his truck is paid off. So he has no truck note and he has no trailer note. And second is that he's very flexible. He will take a load anywhere. But this week, what was interesting was he took basically 2 partial loads into Kansas, which also gave him a pretty good price. That's also a pretty good strategy. If you're ever loaded with like only partial load, try to load another product into your truck, right? So you can like really enhance the load rate per mile if you're going into some area. Again, check with your broker if that is allowed and stuff. So you want to make sure that you're not crossing any lines and doing something that you shouldn't be doing. But those were the 2 interesting things that I think inflated this week's numbers, right? One was that he took 2 loads into Kansas, and then one was that he has a no truck payment, right? So just keep those 2 things in mind. So he left Tuesday on May 28th. He went from Baltimore, Maryland, picked up a load from Baltimore, Maryland, picked it up from Aberdeen, Maryland, and delivered in Olathe, Kansas. He took that load for $2,000 I think the miles are on that are like about 1,100 miles. Then he also took a partial load from Mechanicsburg, PA to St. Louis. So he just picked up something on the way and delivered it before he delivered this load. And he got
Got it.
$800 on it, right? So he went to Kansas for $2,800
With 2 stops
with
each,
two
right? 2 pickups,
yeah,
2
and
drop-offs.
two drop offs. But again, is he going to do this every week? Probably not. So just you can shave off the $800 in this week just for because it's an exception. So he goes into Kansas for $2,800. Then he picks up a load on Friday from Frontenac. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Frontenac, Kansas to Bedford, PA for $2,300. I think that's 900 miles. And then so he delivered that Sunday on the 2nd, and then he picks up a load from Winchester, Virginia, and goes to Monroe Township, New Jersey for 1,000. And then from New Jersey, he comes back to Maryland for 600. So his total gross for the week was his fuel cost was $1,353.62 after bobtail discounts, and it was left with $53.46.38. So $5,346.38. Tolls. So there are tolls in Kansas and Pennsylvania. So he had $394 in tolls. After tolls, he was left with $4,952.38. So $4,952.38. Now you can input your truck payment in here, and we can just plug those in right now. Let's just say your truck payment is whatever, $3,000 a month, and a trailer payment is, I don't know, another 600. Let's just say 900. So $3,600 total in truck payments and stuff. Let's just say $900 is your weekly truck payments. You are left with, wow, we're doing this live. You're left with $4,052.38, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what you'll take home. Given you have no repairs, no maintenance costs, right? That's about $4,000.
How much do you usually, even if you don't have a maintenance event that week, how would you calculate what the estimated maintenance cost of running your truck for a week would be? Is it like a cents per mile, or how do you do that calculus?
Yeah, there's a cent per mile conversion, and I would have to look that up. I think it's around 10 cents, 15 cents. Actually, with inflation, it may have gone up. But let's say you bake in 20 cents, right? Just to be safe, right?
You could also just calculate it for your truck.
Yeah.
So if you've been driving that truck for a couple of months,
yeah,
how much have you paid on maintenance? Divide that by the number of miles you've driven, and there's your cents per mile that you should be reserving for maintenance.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that's the maintenance cost. So you're left with $4,052.38. Not a bad week. I think it's a week. Let's say you take out the $800, that a partial load, because you're not going to get that all the time. You're left with $3,252.38. And if you just repeat this 4 times a month, we can see how you can average about, I think, almost $13,009.52. Yeah, net. But you're working a lot, right? Again,
how many days was he out? Was he out all 7 days?
Yeah, he was out all 7 days. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not going to do that 4 times.
Yeah. And so that gives you a good figure if you have to do this over and over without the partial. And looking at 3252, which is, I think, a realistic number would be, let's just say you do that 3 times a month. You're looking at 9757. I think that's more of a realistic number. And this is after $3,600 in truck payments. By the way, out of 9757, you have to pay your maintenance cost. He has a little bit of a newer truck, so that helps him out there. But essentially, he took almost $41.52.38 home for the week after his tolls and fuel, just because he does not have any truck notes and those kind of things. But not everybody's in that situation, right?
Right.
And I want to say this, right? I think he's in a good situation where he doesn't have to work and he's very flexible, right? Like this whole week, he'll probably be home, right? Just because you don't have a truck note and your equipment is paid off, you could just have a very variable schedule. You're not forced to work. The situation,
but you still have to pay for insurance, right? So that's probably the biggest cost.
Actually, that's a really good point, which I did not
accounted for in there.
Yeah, his insurance is about $1,600 per month. Take out the $400,
which isn't bad.
Yeah, he's at about $37.52, right? So yeah, we forgot to actually add insurance. So plug in your own numbers of what the insurance was. He's paying about $1,600 per month. So he's left with what, $37.52 without the partial. If you include the partial, because that was a good week, he still made $45.52.
Yeah, so it's $400 a week for insurance, let's say. And he's so experienced that that's why his insurance is so low, right?
Yeah, I think it could be even lower. Like he's okay, even with experience. He's had one accident. And
sure.
So I don't think it's the cheapest, but it's not bad. 1,600 is, in this environment, it's not bad in terms of insurance. But the idea is that, hey, keep your costs low, right? If whenever you're making money in trucking, make sure you have your savings, right? So when the downturn comes, you
Yep.
keep your truck or you buy a truck and a trailer cash so that you can make the money, right? So he's still clearing. If he works, he's not working a full month, but if he is working a full month, I think he can still clear like $8,000 to $10,000 per month. By the way, there's no dispatch fees. I always recommend you learn how to dispatch yourself. So he's not giving
Right.
10% to anyone else. And we also did not incorporate factoring cost, which is another 3%. I think about another $200, right? But again, we were trying to get a ball figure, right? How much did he gross? He grossed 6,700 for the full week. But that's really the state that you want to be in if you want to make money. Definitely dispatch
For
your
sure.
own trucks.
Yeah, definitely. We've been reaching out to a lot of carriers lately about our factoring service, and a lot of them are coming back and being like, "Yep, I'm dispatching my own loads.
Yeah.
I need the support, all the support I can get."
Yeah, I had a conversation today. I told him, look, nobody's gonna work as hard as you for your truck, right? Sometimes dispatchers want to book the first load that's becoming available, so he can be done with his job, right?
Totally.
He has no stake in how much money you're gonna make, and essentially his job is to just get your truck covered. So he's not whether the load is $1,000 or $1,500, it doesn't hurt his pocket much, right? So the incentives are misaligned. I think whenever I look at a carrier and a dispatcher relationship, right? Unless you make the payment terms in a way where he's invested in actually you being successful, but a lot of the times I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are pressed and need to hire a dispatcher, if they're not asking you, okay, what's your cost per mile? What are your goals? How do you want to, what kind of lifestyle do you want? When do you want to be home? Those are all things that they should be asking
Yeah, no,
so
that's
that they're aligned with what you want. All
100%.
right, let's get to one question before we go. This is a question that we got on a video about brokers and how to book loads with brokers. And one of the things that was asked on this from someone who wrote a comment was, do brokers or shippers reject carriers based on the age of your tractor? And then someone else commented and said, my truck is a 2009, so would I get rejected? What's your experience in this, Gervier?
Yeah, they do. I think more so reefers, right? Or trailers. That's where I see a lot of the rejections happen. They
Yeah,
want or reefers. For example, if somebody shipping produce, they probably don't want a trailer older than 10 years, right? You want, because if there's breakdowns and you need to find somebody emergency to fix the reefer, the product can go bad really quickly. So in those types of products, they do require to make sure that you have a brand new trailer or a new trailer, not a brand new trailer. But it's usually food grade, which require. Truck, no, I don't think there's a big need on the truck, on what year the truck is. More so on
interesting.
where the cargo is going. And some may have it. I'm saying generally, most of the time, it's more so the trailer requirement, not the truck.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? They need to protect their customer's product.
Yeah, totally. And they don't want claims, and you don't want claims either. For example, if you have a reefer that's 15 years old, probably you should not be hauling ice cream, right? Ice cream's gonna go really bad really quickly. Like you won't even have enough time to find a mechanic, get him over there, and it's a reefer. About it.
Yeah, especially in June.
Yeah. Otherwise, the ice cream's gonna be leaking out of the trailer. Yeah, you don't want that situation.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
All right. We have some more questions, but we'll get to them the next time. Thanks for joining me this week, Gervier.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Drive safe, everyone.